What will I read in June? Well, I have big plans, so let's find out what those are. Welcome to my channel, In Search of Wonder. My name is Anne, and this June, we are celebrating Red, White, and June for the 250th anniversary of the United States of America. And if you have not yet seen my announcement video about that, you can, I'll put a card up here so that you can watch it and find out more information about that. So I am attempting this month to read all Revolutionary War themed books. Now, it was a little bit harder than I thought it might be because I actually don't have a lot on my shelf. I have a few things, but I also bought a couple things. Thrift books, I had a birthday free book, and then I had a free book that I earned. Anyway, so I got a couple things from thrift books. I had a couple things. I have a couple things on my Kindle. I have a couple things I can get through my library. And then there are a couple, I'm not sure, where I might procure the books that I need. So there's still a couple of open-ended question marks going on here. But in the end, I'm hoping to make everything work. So let's talk about the Revolutionary War themed reading that I'm going to be doing for the whole month of June. First of all, I have not made the spread yet in my journal, but I did print out the graphic that Shannon designed for our readathon that has all of the prompts. And so I am hoping to cover all of these prompts by what I read. I do think, well, I don't know. A couple of these prompts, I feel like a lot of revolutionary books have that element in them. In particular, Secrets or Spies, Loyalist or Patriot, Faith That Endures. Quill and Parchment, I think, is going to be a little bit trickier. I'm not sure. That's the only one I think that I'm probably not going to get. Courage and Petticoat, it just has to be, you know, a female main character. That's easy. So anyway, I think I'll be able to get all those prompts. But I'm also wanting to read all my regular challenges with revolutionary themes as well. So beginning with my Reading the Classics challenge, the prompt is Land of the Free, Home of the Brave. And the idea is to read a book that is set in the United States of America. I filmed a recommendation video for that went live last week. So if you want some more recommendations, you can watch that video. But what I'm going to read is the result of a rabbit trail that I went on last month in May that resulted from a book I read for the Reading the Classics challenge in May, which was The Coquette. And it was it wasn't a true story, but it was based on a true story about a woman who ended up having a child, but nobody knew who the father was, didn't know if she was married. Like, she said she was married, but her family was not aware that she had been married. So there's a great mystery there. And she died alone of consumption, and her baby was stillborn. And so there's just a whole tragic element to her story that adds to the interest, honestly, that people have in it. And then I got sucked into this rabbit hole of books that were very popular during that time period that were often based on true stories, similar in nature. So young, innocent woman pursued or betrayed or whatever into indiscretion at the very least, or scandal at the worst. And so these books were written about these women. And so two in particular that are of interest to me that I found on Kindle for either free or like 99 cents. One is The Power of Sympathy by, now most of these were published anonymously because they were based on true stories. And so, you know, and this one, it took them a while to actually find out who wrote it, but they're pretty sure it was written by William Hill Brown. That is The Power of Sympathy. And then Charlotte Temple is by Susanna Rowson. Both of these were written during that 1770 to 1797 time frame that our challenge is set up in. And actually, both of the incidents occurred as well during that time frame, I believe. So, and based on true stories. Susanna Rowson, the second author I mentioned, is an interesting person because she was a British person, actually. She was she was living in the colonies, but I think her dad was, he was serving the British in some capacity at the cusp of the Revolutionary War. And so then they went back to England. And so she lived in England for a long time. And that's, I believe, when she actually wrote the book. And then she came back to the States. By that point in time, she was an actress, I believe. And so she was in an acting troupe. And they were in Boston, maybe Philadelphia, I don't know. And so at that point, and then I believe she lived in America for the rest of her life. So anyway, she had an interesting story herself. I would love to read a book about her. But anyway, both of those sound really interesting to me, and I have access to both of them. I don't know which one or the other I will get to in June, but they're both options. And then for Alma's Journey Through Time Readathon, Alma, forgive me, but I'm flipping the June and July prompts. So for June, Alma actually has World War I or World War II, and I have a lot of options on my shelf for one or the other of those, but I'm going to save them for July. And I'm going to do the July prompt in June, which is Revolutionary War. So, and I understand perfectly why Alma did that, because July 4th, etc. But I'm switching them for the purpose of this readathon. I hope that's okay. My two options for that one, again, I have a lot of options going on here. We'll see what actually ends up happening. I do want to read Laura France's latest two books, which I have not read. One is The Belle of Chatham, and one is Indigo Heiress. And both of them are very interesting to me. I like the sound of both of them. I like Laura France. I've enjoyed most of the books I've read by her. She writes a lot based in the early colonial and revolutionary time frame. So a lot of her books are options for this readathon. But those two I haven't read yet, and I really want to. So one or the other of those, and I can get them through Hoopla, through my library. So I have access to both of them. And then for Read Your Bookshelf, the prompt is 5 words or more. So I have this book that I've had for a while, Hang 1,000 Trees with Ribbons, the story of Phyllis Whitley. And this is a young adult biographical novel about Phyllis Whitley, who was an enslaved female poet in colonial times, in the Revolutionary era. Kidnapped from her home in Senegal and sold as a slave in 1761, a young girl is purchased by the wealthy Wheatley family of Boston. Phyllis Wheatley, as she comes to be known, has an eager mind and knack for learning that leads her on an unusual path for a slave. When the Wheatleys discover Phyllis's talent for writing poetry, they begin to mold her future by having her perform for influential guests. Eventually, she is sent to England, where her work is finally published, the first book of poetry by an African-American woman. And as an accompaniment to that, I have Phyllis Wheatley, Poems on Various Subjects, Religious and Moral, and a memoir of Phyllis Wheatley, a native African and a slave. I'm hoping to read both of these. I've been wanting to for a while, and this readathon really gives me the cake in the pants I need to just do it. Looking forward to both of those. And then for Jeanette's Christian Fiction Bingo Challenge, the prompt for June is a book set in the summer, or with summer in the title, and a booktuber recommendation. So I do know that Victoria at Hot Cocoa and Books had recommended The Belle of Chatham by Laura France, which I already mentioned. She recommended that earlier this year as a book that she read and enjoyed. So that could fit for that one. The problem is summer. I've been really struggling with the whole summer part. I don't really know. I think I'm just maybe going to have to retroactively work that one in. I got some recommendations from some friends, but unfortunately, none of those books were easily accessible to me. And since I had already purchased a couple books just for this readathon through Thrift Books, I just decided to just see what happens. And hopefully one of the books I read will be at least largely set in the summer. Then as far as the other prompts and books that I might specifically try to read to fit them and the options that I have. For Secrets and Spies, I have a fictional book on my Kindle by Rosanna M. White about the Culper spy ring. And I've been wanting to read it for a long time. It's been on my Kindle for a long time. I do enjoy Rosanna M. White's writing for the most part. So I am looking forward to reading one of those. I think I have the first and third in the series, and then there's like a novella that goes with this series that I've actually already read. So I will definitely read the first book in the series. Probably won't get to more than that, but I will start that series. And then for loyalists or patriots, I have a nonfiction option that I've had for a while and really want to read. And that is the 1776 by David McCullough, which is a standard book. You know, whenever you come across a list of books about the American Revolution, this one is right there. So I am very excited to read this one. And I've never read anything by David McCullough, but I know he's a highly respected historian and author. So I'm looking forward to reading 1776 by him and knocking off the nonfiction prompt as well as the Loyalists or Patriots prompt. And for the Quills and Parchment, I know the idea of it is supposed to be epistolary, but I sort of feel like the idea of Quills and Parchment goes very well with Phyllis Wheatley's poetry. So I'm actually counting this book for that prompt. And plus, it is a memoir in here, which is, you know, a sort of epistolary, sort of, you know, it fits. We're making it work. We're making it work. Anyway, so then for the Faith That Endures prompt, I have a couple of options, but one is this book, Forged in Faith by Rod Gregg, which got great reviews when I was looking for books about this. And it says, the subtitle is How Faith Shaped the Birth of the Nation, 1607 to 1776. This was one of the things that I bought on thrift books for this readathon, and I'm really excited about digging into that. I also picked up this book, which could go for Quill and Parchment as well. That is This Glorious Struggle, George Washington's Revolutionary War Letters. But this is not as high priority as some of the others. Like, and I don't really see myself reading 3 nonfiction books in 1 month, because that's very unusual, but especially, you know, in-depth ones. But I have 1776, Forged in Faith, and then this one, The Glorious Struggle. This is the lowest priority of those 3, so I don't know that I'll get to it, but it would fit for the Quill and Parchment prompt, and it is George Washington's Revolutionary War Letters. And finally, for Courage in Petticoat, either The Belle of Chatham or The Indigo Heiress would work for that, because they both feature female characters. So that is for the Red, White, and June readathon. I also am participating in Chantel Reads All Day's Passport to Summer Reading. I haven't put these in my journal, but I will. I have them at least printed out. And then Tiffany's Summer Book Bingo. Definitely going to be participating in that as well. But these ones, at least for the month of June, because I was really focused on the Revolutionary reading, I'm going to retrofit any of those into these if they work. But then in July, because I think both of these go at least through July, if not through August as well, I can fit the other ones in there more intentionally in July and maybe August. So that is my plan for the month of June. Very heavily focused on the Revolutionary War. And I'm really excited about that. I'm really looking forward to this readathon and just reading all up on colonial times and the Revolution just before we celebrate the Declaration of Independence in July. So let me know in the comments below what you're planning to read for the various prompts, and if you're joining with us for the readathon and what you want to read for that, and if you have any recommendations for me of summer books that are set in Revolutionary era, Christian fiction specifically. Let me know if there's anything that I should see if I can find. All right, let's chat in the comments, and I will see you next time. Happy reading in June. Bye.